Hey guys, so in the last episode, we talked about Joseph Smith finally obtaining the long-awaited golden plates and other Nephite relics from a hill south of his family's farm. We talked about how he was attacked while bringing the plates home, and we talked about how his family members reacted to the whole situation. But getting the plates home was only the beginning. Later in life, Catherine Smith's grandson remembered her saying that after Joseph got the plates,
the atmosphere of the home became charged with watchfulness, obligation, and care, lest someone might, at an unguarded moment, seize the plates and make away with them.
In this episode, we're going to talk about those attempts to find and take the golden plates. Stay tuned. No one in Joseph's family was allowed to directly see the plates when they were brought home, and for more info on why that may have been, go watch this episode. Nonetheless, many of Joseph's family members and family friends had incredibly tangible experiences with the plates. We've talked about those experiences in other episodes, but feel free to pause and read about some of them here if you're curious. And I should also mention that once the plates had been translated in 1829, a few members of Joseph's family were selected to be official witnesses of the plates and were permitted to actually see and handle them. All of the Smiths were absolutely convinced that the plates were real, and they weren't the only ones. Word got around that Joseph had recovered the plates. Joseph Knight remembered that
people came in to see them, but he told them that they could not, for he must not show them. But many insisted and offered money and property to see them. But for keeping them from the people, they persecuted and abused them, and they were obliged to hide them.
Catherine Smith remembered that after Joseph brought the plates home,
from that time on, our house was searched all around, and our field and our wheat stacks were searched. The mob was around our house nearly every night, and from that time until we went to Pennsylvania, we had to keep watch for the enemy.
There are two specific attempts that show up repeatedly in the historic record. On one occasion, Joseph had been informed about a mob set on taking the plates later that evening. Joseph's mother, Lucy Mack Smith, recalled,
"It was resolved that a portion of the hearth should be taken up, and the plates and breastplate should be buried under the same, and then the hearth relaid to prevent suspicion. This was carefully and speedily done, but the hearth was scarcely relaid when a large company of armed men came rushing up to the house. Joseph threw the door open and hallooed as if he had a legion at hand, giving the word of command with great importance. At the same time, the males that belonged to the house, from the father down to little Carlos, ran out with such vehemence upon the mob that it struck them with terror and dismay, and they fled before our little Spartan band away into the woods, where they dispersed themselves to their several homes."
Lucy also tells that just a few days later,
Joseph received another intimation of the approach of a mob and the necessity of removing the record and breastplate again from their hiding place. Consequently, Joseph took them out of the box in which they had been placed, wrapped them in clothes, carried them across the road to a cooper's shop, and laid them in a quantity of flax which was stowed in the shop loft. He then nailed up the box as before, and tore up the floor, and put the box under it.
Now, east of the Smiths' property lived a guy named Willard Chase. His sister Sally Chase was known in the area for being able to use a seer stone similar to Joseph. Joseph's mother later learned that Sally had led the mob to the Smiths' cooper shop right to where the decoy box had been buried. Lucy reported,
"As soon as it was dark, the mob came and ransacked the place, but did not come into the house. After making a satisfactory search, they went away. The next morning we found the floor of the cooper's shop taken up, and the wooden box which was put under it split to pieces."
Now, as a side note, the plates were initially kept in an old toolbox previously owned by Joseph's brother Alvin. They probably didn't fit super well, and probably for that reason were soon transferred to a cherrywood box that had been built specifically for the plates. This was likely the box that had been smashed in the cooper shop. After that box was destroyed, the plates were eventually transferred to a third box, often referred to as the Ontario glass box. It was not a box made of glass. Glass boxes were normally meant to hold panes of glass. Martin Harris recalled,
"The excitement in the village upon the subject of the plates had become such that some had threatened to mob Joseph, and also to tar and feather him. They said he should never leave until he had shown the plates. It was unsafe for him to remain, so I determined that he must go to his father-in-law's in Pennsylvania. I advised him to take time enough to get ready so that he might start a day or two in advance. for he would be mobbed if it was known when he started.
And that was almost the case. Joseph's mother reported,
When it became generally known that Joseph was about moving to Pennsylvania, a mob of 50 men collected and went to Dr. McIntyre and requested him to take the command of the company, stating that their object was to follow Joe Smith and take his gold Bible away from him.
Dr. McIntyre told the men to
mind your own business!
And the mob ended up dispersing. Martin Harris continued,
We put the box of plates into a barrel about 1/3 full of beans and headed it up. It was understood that they were to start on Monday, but they started on Saturday night and got through safe.
And thus our journey through church history takes us to Harmony, Pennsylvania. For more info on today's subject, check out the resources in the YouTube description, watch some of our other videos while you're here, subscribe if you haven't yet, and have a great day.